Hi,
Alright.
welcome to Hotel Nerd. I'm Chris,
And our movie Loves Unite.
and we are joined by Nerdtronic today.
Hey guys. Hey guys. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're
Yeah,
welcome anytime.
gotta tell you, man, this is a big deal for us.
Yeah.
You are the first SDN member to grace our airwaves, and I greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, of course, no problem. The first, a fresh SDM member, I guess, as it would be, since my debut was when you guys put the call out for someone to come on the show. So thank you for having me.
Oh, I didn't
You're
realize
welcome
that.
anytime.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, that was my debut on the show. Yeah, but I have been involved with the Schmodown for a while, so it kind of goes hand in hand.
Yeah, I'm actually just getting into the Schmodown myself. I'm a rookie fan, and I gotta tell you what, I'm loving everything. I just got up to the point of the trial of JTE, and
So
some of the stuff that Finstock said, man.
you're watching it from the beginning then.
Yeah, I'm actually listening to it when I'm working.
Yeah.
I listen to it in my headphones.
Nice.
Basically trying to study up on questions because I'm telling you what, I want to have this match with Larry Lee so bad. Him and I having that rivalry over there on SCN Live.
Yeah.
I so want that match.
Yeah, that's great to hear, man. Like, I mean, I know, Christian loves it. We always love hearing that there are new fans and people getting into the show, and more specifically, we love hearing that there are people going back and listening to the old material and seeing the evolution of the show. I mean, we'd really appreciate that.
You're welcome. And I've also been following the Schmodown back when Roka got spared by Team Action, and I've also followed them back in 2013 whenever it was just them sitting on the couch on the Schmoes No Show and everything.
Yeah.
So just seeing how big it actually got blown up over the years and how well everybody actually is a fan of that community, where it actually was very well received. It's just great. And then, of course, you're doing the editing for the trailers and picking the music for it is just outstanding, man. I have to say, you do really good, awesome job with that.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
So one thing I was curious about is, I'm sure we all have our story of how we got into doing this.
Mm-hmm.
But what was your aha moment to where it's like, okay, this is what I want to do. Movies sucked me in, and you realized that you wanted to do anything with film at all.
So anything with film, like just film,
like
movies in general.
Like just in general. Like what movie, what moment?
I think, well, I've always loved movies growing up. I used to watch movies all the time when I was a kid. My family, my dad and I, and my brother and sister, my mom, we all had, or collectively, we had a Blockbuster Gold card. So we would go to Blockbuster all the time when I was a kid and rent movies and rewatch the same movies that we loved, like watch new movies. And so it was like a big part of my family growing up. And then, but I think it was when I got into high school, I took a video editing class. And I kind of got the hang of that, and I was really trying to put together the whole idea of editing inside, like what I can do for as a job, and that's when I kind of fell in love with the like medium, or like I guess the work of like editing.
That's pretty cool, man. Because I've actually put together some trailers and everything too for my podcast, just promoting and stuff like that. And I know how hard it is to actually pick up the music to certain things, and even scenes for that matter as well. Trying to put everything together to make everything be sliced together so perfectly well to where we can balance each other out and everything. And I know that has to take a lot of practice and a lot of time on your hands to try and pace everything together.
Yeah.
And how do you actually? I know that this might seem like an SEN question, but I figure if people haven't listened to the show or anything like that, but I'm kind of curious, how do you actually pick out the songs for the material that you actually want to do?
For Schmodown specifically?
Yeah, for Schmodown.
Yeah, so I have a handful of music libraries that I subscribe to. So like they have services where you pay an annual fee, you get access to the library, you can download and use the music as you need to for projects, and they're copyright free, so you don't have to worry about being hit or tagged on YouTube. That's what I've been using for the last year and a half since I've been working with Schmodown. And I think I was talking about this on SEN when I was on this past week. And yeah, like the hard part for me is finding the right music. I think that's the hardest part for any of the promos, because I would need to find something that kind of matches or feels right with the competitors, the story, like the narrative, the kind of vibe, the tone of what like the match is going to be. And so I do spend a lot of time kind of going through and trying to pick the right track to kind of feel out how it's going to complement the story and the competitors. I can't use necessarily the same track for the Real Rejects and the Wildberries. I can't use the same track for, say, like Bateman versus Roca or Merle. Like there's different there's different aesthetic to like it needs to be applied to what's happening within the story. And so I usually do go around and have like a handful of tracks that I listen to. I try to play my blueprint of the promo in my head as I'm listening to it, see if like it has like the right peaks and valleys I'm looking for. And then I give it a go. If I try to edit with like the track going underneath, and I told this on SEN again, which is just that there are some times, like there have been a handful of times doing these promos that I got through like a third of the way on one promo, and I just decided like it's not working. Like this track just isn't doing what I was hoping it would do for the story, for this promo. So I'd scrap it, I'd start from scratch. And I did that for a handful. And luckily, I think most times when I kind of come to that conclusion, I end up finding like a better track that complements the promo as it should be, at least what I was hoping for in my head.
You see, I go through that same thing too when doing thumbnails and stuff like that myself, because I have a vision on how I want to actually envision something. And then I'm like, okay, this is not going the way I need it actually to go on. So I have to scrap that idea and then think of another idea that's even more creative to actually try and do. So I understand what you're going through with that whole entire process. Yeah. And then I know with the music and everything too that you actually have to try and do. You have to actually try and splice that together and actually go on ahead and try and make it as best as you possibly can.
Right, right. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I love the knowledge that you brought to SEN that day when they were doing the movie trailer talk.
Yeah.
You brought that knowledge of that there are separate companies that do movie trailers.
Right.
Which I didn't even know that. I thought Disney always produced their own trailers. I thought Fox always did theirs, so on and so forth. Yeah. I was right in that boat with Brett. I honestly thought that, they're mega corporations. You don't think of them outsourcing somewhere else to make movie trailers. You would think that they would want to have a cohesive control at all times on their product.
Yeah, Disney, they still have control. Like, trust me, they control a lot of things, but they do have the means and the resources to outsource what they need to certain companies. Again, as I said on SEN, I used to work for a company that was a third-party company for them for marketing materials, and so I kind of got a good understanding of like the way they kind of structured their release of those trailers and TV spots, posters, etc. And it was a fun conversation to jump in on. I just posted that I would have loved to be a part of that conversation, and luckily Ben Goddard gave me the link to jump on that day. And in hindsight, I'm glad that I did, because Roca ended up leaving like the same time I jumped on. So in hindsight, I don't know what they would have done like with just the three of them for the next hour, like talking about trailers.
Yeah. Now also going back talking about the music side that you and John were just talking about. When, say, Disney, and if I'm getting a little bit too far inside baseball here, let me know. Right. Or if it's details that you can't go into, I get it. But when Disney would say send an Avengers trailer or whatever, do they blueprint you with the music that you have to use and certain cues that you have to use the music in? Or is that kind of up to the prerogative of the person that's making the trailer?
There are there's different protocols depending on the company and the studio you're dealing with. Sometimes they will have say for the Avengers trailer, like they had like new renditions of the Avengers theme that was being played underneath those trailers. So like obviously you're not going to get that from any sort of other source besides Disney. They're going to have that composed and ready to send to you, so you can use it for your purposes. So that way, the company then has a much closer dialogue with what Disney wants, so they can give them materials like the trailer, the track to use, and then they do kind of have a rundown, like a breakdown of clips and scenes that are provided. Like they don't get the whole movie. They don't get the whole movie to just like sift through to build it. They are provided like a handful of like specific things that need to be put in the trailer for marketing purposes. So it is kind of like a dance, like a back and forth between the company and the studio to kind of figure out like what material they want to be aired to the public.
Another thing I have a question about is, do directors actually have a choice in what they show and don't show, or is it up to the editors to put in what they want and then go ahead and put it out towards the companies?
It's some directors do, and I think we did talk about this on SEN. Like there are some directors that have the acclaim and the kind of like clout to make sure they have a hand in the way the trailer is produced and like the way the information is conveyed. Christopher Nolan is one that is he has a lot of control over the way he structures his trailers. So his trailers are usually very ambiguous, like they tease a lot, they don't show a lot. Whereas Sony is notorious for having trailers that kind of just tell you the entire movie. They show you a lot from like first, second, and third act. They'll show you like all the money shots, all the jokes, and that's more like a paint by numbers type of thing that they do. But yeah, there are some directors that do have enough acclaim so they can kind of sit down and say like what they actually want the trailer to tell the audience.
That's true, because if, like, for instance, Steven Spielberg or as you mentioned, a Christopher Nolan walks into the thing, they already know it's going to make bank at the movie theaters, so therefore they can actually contribute to anything they actually want to pick up on, because they know that their movie's going to be good, or because people are just going to go ahead and see it because it's a Steven Spielberg movie or a Christopher Nolan film.
Yeah.
So that actually does make sense.
Yeah.
There's a lot of control over their trailer.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, I know if I heard you correctly, because I listened to it when I was at work, and I may have been slightly distracted, but did you say that your Mona Lisa was the Houston promotion?
Yeah,
for Schmoes
for Guy versus Bateman in Houston.
Yeah,
at the Booker T Wrestling Arena. Yeah, I mean that was the one that Christian had described as my Mona Lisa, with the way he saw it when I made that trailer or made that promo. I sent it to him ahead of time, and he called me and told me that in his opinion it was my Mona Lisa, which at that time I think it very much was. I agreed with that. I think it was like I think of that year, it was the first big trailer that I put out that one had a lot of narrative to tell and a big rivalry to kind of highlight. And then two, it was just something that I really put a lot of time and effort into to kind of give it the gravitas that I think it needed to be like between those two people and to be at that venue. So I think that was the first go I had at kind of giving a Schmoedown promo like the kind of unique style that I want to give it. Then from there on, I was able to develop that into Spencer Kalinowski, and then Kalinowski and Cushing in San Diego, and so on. And since then, we've had like so many great matches like throughout the rest of the year in 2019 that I was able to kind of pinpoint and say like, okay, this match needs to be big, like it has a lot of writing on it, so I have to kind of make sure I give this a unique sense of flair. Like I do put a lot of effort into all the promos that I do, including the studio match promos, but they are different. Like the matches that are in Atlanta and Houston, New York, like I think people are excited to see something a little bit bigger depending on who's competing, and so I like to try to provide that to the best of my ability, depending on again who is being brought up there on stage.
Now, with that,
what's your favorite match?
Sorry, which one?
Go on ahead, Chris.
I was going to ask, with that being your, what Christian says, your Mona Lisa, what would you say would be the most difficult trailer that you've ever had to make?
It's a good one. I'm trying to think. In recent memory, one of the harder ones I had to make is the Star Wars ones, because one, Alex Damon just refuses to lose, and so we have to keep getting him back in as the champion that's being challenged. And there's only so much like you can build like in a promo that wasn't said in the last promo that we just saw like a couple months ago. And so no slight on Alex because he's doing what he has to do. Yeah, he's winning, which is absolutely what he has to do as champion. But it becomes a bit difficult to build a different narrative or a entertaining narrative around him when the whole spiel is just that he just doesn't lose. Like that's pretty much what it is at this point. He's so the last one we did for Spectacular with him versus Laura Kelly, it was like I just kind of wanted to boom, 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 highlight the fact that he's ran through all these competitors, all these people, and he's just unbeatable. And, Laura Kelly was hopefully the new rookie sensation that was going to come and give him a fair challenge. And that's the note I ended the promo on, which that she says she hopes this is the first of the new rookie class coming in to give the Star Wars League a shot in the arm that it needs. And I think it is. We have her, we have Alex de Malanta, we have Sean Sullivan, Adam Witt now. We have like a handful of other people, Ace and Josh Kaveda, who are coming up in the tournament. And we have a bunch of people who are going to give that whole league a good shakeup. And luckily, that combined with the fact that Alex is now going into Inner Geekdom, it gives me a lot more stuff to work with. So I'm looking forward to doing some more Star Wars stuff finally at this point in time, along with some more stuff for Alex because he has a lot more material to work with.
Right.
Yeah.
I can actually see that though, especially
yeah.
But my question is too, like, what's your favorite match? What's your favorite match that you actually had to do and everything and you watched?
Yeah, I was you mean for the promo, just to watch and then do the promo for?
Watch and do the promo.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun with the two promos that I did for Smets and Kalinowski. The first one being at Collision last year, and then the second one being a Spectacular later that year in December. And I really liked building those two. Like it, and I always put a lot of effort into making these promos as expansive and as big as they can be, but there is work into kind of shaping them into a cohesive narrative. I can show a lot of money shots and like big bombastic things for the promo, but it has to kind of have like a flow to it. Whereas with Spencer Kalinowski, like they kind of provided that very naturally because the narrative between the two, the rivalry that they had, was a natural rivalry that they built between one another. They started doing that at Free For All in March of last year. They had that kind of face off that they did, and that wasn't like anything that came out of nowhere. Like they didn't have a scene together, they didn't have a match together, they didn't interact anytime before that, and so they decided to just kind of like start it there, and they went off on it afterwards, and they started doing a little bit more leading into Collision, which is when Smets built up his shot to get to Kalinowski at Collision for the number one contender match. And since then, like they're kind of like back and forth between the rest of the year was very natural. I liked doing it because it was something that they themselves like felt naturally like comfortable dealing with and between one another. Like they would have their back and forth, they have their banter, and it felt as big as Guy and Bateman, as big as like Roka and Merle, even though Spence was a rookie and Kalinowski previously had his rivalry with Rachel Cushing. And so I just think that building something from scratch between those two was like immensely easy, and that's because of how talented they were in kind of building that tension for the game.
That's actually pretty cool. I like that whole entire aspect of it.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Everything, and they kind of used improv of it, so that I like the fact that you were able to build off of that. That's actually pretty cool.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm assuming that you've been a fan of Movie Trivia Schmoedown for a while before becoming the person making the trailers behind the scenes. If you had to pick one moment for somebody like me who's just jumping in, what moment do you say, watch out for this? This is a huge moment.
As far as like stuff that's already happened, like you're going through, you're going to see at some point.
Yeah.
You mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think for me, the match between if you're going from season 1 onward, it probably won't happen for a while. But for me, as I was getting into it, the Star Wars 5-way in at Star Wars Celebration was one of the earlier matches that I saw that just excited me because I do love Star Wars, and that match does have like a really good back and forth, like a really good dynamic between the competitors, and so like it is like a nail biting match. It's a close one, and then my favorite one, I think after that though, when I was watching it regularly, was Rachel Cushing versus Mark Knopic, and at the studio match, and that's like I think one of the best matches of all time, truthfully, and that's I think a good match of like being able to watch the show and be invested in like the stakes of it at the moment. It's I guess you're adrenaline pumping in a very weird nerdy way, like it's just people sitting down answering movie trivia, but like the kind of level of competition that's being displayed is palpable, and I think it is something that people can latch onto and like feel the energy coming through the show at that moment.
Right, yeah. I'm glad I got some good moments to look forward to.
Yeah.
Not only that, but even the Roka and Team Action one is actually pretty good as well, too, because there's that whole entire arc of beef that's actually going on between Roka and Team Action during that time.
Yeah.
And then with Ben Bateman, and also what's his other sidekick that he had at that time? I forgot. I'm drawing a blank. but I really like that whole.
Roka's had a lot of rivalries in throughout the series.
Yeah.
He's
even I know that as a rookie. Yeah. Even I know that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And Roka was one of those competitors that was just fantastic.
Yeah.
It still is.
Well, let me ask you, Chris, how did you get introduced to the show?
I was a big fan of Collider. I actually started watching Collider Heroes when Schnepp was still hosting. And then they started talking about, I just kept hearing about Schmodown. Like every so often they throw it out there. And every so often Christian would make a reference to it on Jedi Council. When I watch Jedi Council religiously because I'm a huge Star Wars nerd.
Yeah.
And then occasionally I catch what was it? Collider Movie News Movie Talk. That's what it was. Because John, you're actually the one that turned me on to that. And then they announced they were doing Collider Live, and it was going to be a different type of show. So I started watching that. And let me tell you what, some of those moments in Collider Live are just amazing. I just saw a moment here recently where Roxy's trying to make a point about something, and who's ever in the back hits the fart noise sound, and Christian and all them just lose it. I think it was Christian, Makuga, and Riley were in the room with Roxy, and they just lost it.
Yeah.
And it even got me because I wasn't expecting it, because I totally forgot about the moment.
Yeah.
And then just a natural progression that Christian went and announced that he was going to make his own channel, keep the same type of show, and I just followed him. And just grandfathered over with them.
Yeah, that's great, man. Like, I'm happy to hear that. I mean, I know because Collider Live and then SCN, when he created it afterwards, like it was he always wanted to heavily integrate it with the Schmodown. I think it's a good example of what he was hoping for. People coming from Collider and SCN to going in and then finding the Schmodown. I mean, I know he loves both and all, but Schmodown definitely is his pride and joy, and I think he would be very appreciative like that you found the Schmodown through the ancillary work that he was building around it.
Now we do have a question here from a fan, Dark Faith 66. Wants to know what you use for editing. That she learned some Adobe stuff years ago, but now out of the loop.
I use Adobe Premiere for my editing for everything I do. I learned when I was in high school, I learned like iMovie and stuff, the kind of the basics, and then I learned in college Final Cut and Avid Media Composer. But over the last several years, since I've been working in LA, I moved on to Adobe because it's just for my purposes. I am a pretty fast run and gun type of editor. Avid is still the industry standard, but it is very meticulous, and it's a lot of time and effort to put into it to kind of make things work the way you want it to, but it is a very stable platform. However, Adobe has made a lot of leaps and bounds over the last several years that I do love, and I'm really happy about. And luckily, the way that is structured, it gives me what I need, which I can like kind of make edits very, very fast, and I can keep up with the work that I need to be doing on a weekly basis, which is the Schmodown on top of all my other work for other things.
John, you look like you got a question brewing there.
Yeah, but no, for me and everything with the Schmoes No Show is whenever I started following them. But I remember when John Campia went on ahead and brought them on the show, and I remembered how knowledgeable Christian was. And then a couple of maybe a month or two later, he brought Ellis on.
Yeah.
And then they started talking about Schmoes No. I'm like, what is Schmoes No? And so next thing I know it, I started following their movie reviews and everything. And then next thing I know it, I became a fan of AMC Movie Talk and also a fan of the Schmoes No Show.
Yeah.
And I even remember when they also did it with the Collider Studio as well, when they tried to do the Schmoes No Show in the Collider Studio at one time. As a matter of fact, that's also when Brett did the rant for Brett to the Future, which is understandable. I understand exactly why he did that. And I respect him for ranting the way he did because of the fact that, you know, you're talking about somebody's mother and it was just very disrespectful. It shows how bad the fan community can actually be.
Yeah.
But, you know, I really do. I always respect Christian. I always respect Mark for their reviews, especially how it's all subjective and they don't make the audience try and make them decide what movie that they shouldn't go see or anything like that. It's all based off of the person that wants to go see a movie. So I really respect them for that.
Yeah, I mean, that was part of it too. I mean, kind of, I found a handful of people that I enjoyed in the same fashion, where I just liked their thoughts and like kind of what they were saying about movies and the space in general. And so it was, I think, one of the people that I found early on was Christian and Mark doing their thing. But then on the side of that, I was also finding people through the Schmodown who they kind of like then brought into like the network, which was Late to the Party, The Real Rejects, and I kind of saw like the YouTube space that was expanding from that. And so I really loved finding the big web and unraveling the big web between everyone that was happening between Christian and everything that they were doing. Hey PC, I see PC in the chat.
Yeah, I see her there too. I know
PC.
Take a shout out to
her. I'll answer that because PC is like always supports us on the other channels that we jump on, which is my favorite classic movie. That's a good question. I'm trying to think classic movie because there's so many that I jump around with because there's classic comedies, classic horror films. I don't know. Can you guys think of one for yourself? Your favorite classic movie?
Classic movies for me would be...
Go ahead, John.
Yeah, for a classic movie for me, it would be like Casablanca. I really like the old black and white. Sometimes I like to actually go with for that. For 80s, John Hughes, I would have to go with The Breakfast Club, and then because of how close he was able to actually get to each character, and some people can actually relate to each character. And so that's why I like The Breakfast Club, because of the comedy and the chemistry between the actors and actresses.
For me, my favorite movie all time, period, hands down, I'll die on this hill, Ghostbusters 1984. I will die on that hill.
Yeah, it's funny. That's kind of like a modern classic, but the thing is, we're getting far enough from that point in the 80s where like it might be considered a classic. I don't know what the exact time frame.
I was wondering if it would be classified a classic.
Yeah, like as we move on further in time, like the modern classics become actual classics. From like the golden age, silver age type of movies. I think mine that I really do like. I like a lot of like old classic comedies. I like Some Like It Hot. I still like It Happened One Night. And a bunch of movies that I was able to kind of find through like my college years of like reviewing films and studying film. Like those are the ones I kind of I think resonate with just because like they kind of meant a lot to me when I was learning film. Yeah.
Thanks, PC.
PC is agreeing with everything you're saying, John.
That's awesome.
I didn't realize there was a book to The Breakfast Club.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, I didn't realize that at all.
I feel like Mark Ellis now. There's a book.
Dark Faith. I mean, I know I said it to you in the chat, but I'll say it here too. I apologize. I should not have assumed your gender. My bad.
I think it was the thumbnail that kind of got you.
Yeah, the thumbnail got me. I got trolled. Oh, and speaking of trolls, some of the things that come in on that Schmobot, man, and I love that Schmobot so much. You haven't had the wonderful experience of being interrupted by that thing yet, have you?
No, luckily the episode that I saw, there was no Schmobot that was turned on. So I avoided it for the first time at least. But yeah, the Schmobot is hilarious because it makes it a little bit more difficult for me when I have to cut promos and I'm trying to pull sound bites from SEN, and then they're saying something that is working really well, and then it gets interrupted by the Schmobot, so I can't use that clip. So kind of sometimes it is a thorn on my side, but like I do love it. I was able to get it in there for the Parker and Ace match that we had a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. Dark Faith also responded.
Yeah.
And says that we're all cool, and favorite movie is The Exorcist, #1 position.
Yeah.
I would say that's my top 5.
Classic horror film for sure.
If I had to pick classic horror film, I got to think on this one. John, I'll let you go first. I got to think on this one.
I'm going to pick 1975, I believe, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Because it's how real it looked. It was like if you think about it, the way it was shot, it was like the Blair Witch of the 1970s. Because of the way, how realistic it actually looked.
Yeah.
And everything. And it scared the crap out of me as a kid. Don't get me wrong. Nightmare on Elm Street scared the crap out of me with Freddy and everything. Because I was afraid to go to sleep. But being awake and having him chase me down with a chainsaw, I would be more scared of him than I would be of Freddy.
Yeah.
But
I kind of felt the same way about that whole the movie. Yeah, like I think there's something scary about just some guy in a face mask, like a literal face mask, just chasing you with the chainsaw.
I'd have to say my favorite horror movie. It's not a classic, but my favorite horror movie. It just keeps popping in my head. It's got to be The Ring.
The Ring, yeah, The Ring's good, and that definitely is.
It's got to be The Ring, because when she jumps from the TV up there onto the landing where he's at, and he falls through that table, and that jump gets me. I know it's coming, but that jump gets me every time.
I think. I think my favorite classic horror film might be Halloween or like The Thing. I think The Thing might qualify as a classic horror film now.
Yeah.
Not like the old days, like the
person to be Christian to watch it.
Yeah. Like we're getting there. He says if we get, I think what he said, 1,000 followers or subscribers on Twitch, he'll do a watch along finally. So just gotta keep at it. And speaking of horror, because I do love horror, but I had to give a shout out to my good friend Galaghost in the chat, who was the new inductee into the dungeon lately, Andre Galago, and he's a huge horror expert. So he's the Schmobot is the enemy. He's a good friend of mine.
Could you make a trailer, being he's saying that Schmobot's the enemy? Could you make a trailer out of all the times that Schmobot's pissed Mark Ellis off?
I'm sure I can be a supercut.
Doing the lip thing and whatnot.
Yeah. It was just a supercut of Ellis getting frustrated every time the Schmobot has to say something.
I really love the look on his face every time it interrupts him, though. It's just classic.
Yeah, and I can relate. I mean, it sucks. Like, Ellis is a professional comedian. Like he has bits in his head that he's running through. He improvises with, like he's sitting down, he's playing along with the banter and like what's coming at him, and he's trying to give back the best he can, and then that just gets derailed by the Schmobot that's cutting off his thoughts.
I definitely have to agree with this comment. The Ring is the playbook for any American horror remake of a foreign horror film. Now,
Yeah.
Galagos, I want to also ask you a question. Have you seen the trailer for Netflix's Ju-On? Because that trailer looks amazing. I cannot wait for that thing to drop and be able to watch that. Granted, I think it's going to all be in Japanese, but I don't care. I'll watch it. I thought The Grudge was a great opportunity, and it was a great missed opportunity.
For a remake, you mean?
Well,
Yeah.
even the first go around when they made it the first time, I think that they swung and they hit a foul ball. They didn't hit a home run. They hit a long foul ball.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, The Grudge has its place, I think, these days. You know, like it has a place in horror, but I don't think it holds up. Like in hindsight, I don't think it really lands the same way like The Ring does, and like some of these other like kind of horror films of like the early 2000s. I think it is. It has like it's kind of an acquired taste for like someone who is interested in the horror genre in general.
Oh, I just
another
thought
horror one.
Ghost Ship.
Another horror one.
Yeah.
Ghost Ship.
Go ahead.
The opening scene with the
Oh.
wire.
Yeah.
Ghost Ship was that got me right from the start with when everybody gets sliced in half with that wire.
Yeah. Yeah, I do remember Ghost Ship. I remember seeing that when I was younger, and the opening scene is pretty gnarly. I don't know how. Again, I haven't seen the movie in a long time. I don't know how well the rest of the movie holds up because that's like the one scene that sticks out in my head.
It actually holds up pretty well. I actually saw it on DirecTV just recently. It's actually pretty decent for how it holds up now, but it's definitely has some bad CGI here and there. But the opening scene still holds up though alone. So you're right about that part. It does hold up still. It's just the other stuff within the movie that doesn't really hold up as much, but still, it's still a good scene.
Right.
For my personal favorite too is Jaws, and Jaws is hands down one of my favorite movies because I remember going over to my aunt's house. Well, I remember going to my aunt's house in Boston because that's actually where I'm originally from, and she had the movie of Jaws on VHS. So every single time I would call her up, she goes, "Let me guess, you want to watch Jaws?" I'm like, "Yes." So she would go on ahead. I would go to her house, get the VHS tape. Not only that, but it also saves money off a Blockbuster. And I would go on ahead and pop it in and just watch it.
I used to. I mean, I think everyone always had, those old VHSs that they used to watch over and over again. I was actually talking about it again on SCN, which is that when I was a kid, I used to watch the same Ninja Turtles 2 VHS over and over again, just to because I always I love that movie. But from there, I always remember the trailers that were ahead of the movie, and the sound of those trailers stick in my mind. I
did that with the Ghostbusters videotape, and my grandparents actually had to go out and buy 3 different videotapes of Ghostbusters because I burned them up.
Yeah.
Ghostbusters is a classic, though, man. I mean, I'm a diehard Ghostbusters fan as well, and I remember eating the cereal. I remember collecting toys. I even had the Firehouse toy. Where
I wasn't that much into it. I just loved the movie. I didn't care about anything else.
I was deep. I was deep into it, but I was a nerd
before Sweaty was a thing.
Right. But yeah, man, I love Ghostbusters. Another thing too that I actually have to say that I really enjoy as a film, and it's because of the camera angles and everything else and what they want to do. It's a modern film, but it's Don't Breathe.
Oh right, yeah.
And just the way the camera angles are, and the way that the camera just pan angles over to the side, and then you see Stephen Lang on one side, but on the other side you actually see the other characters hiding from them, and they have to hold their breath, otherwise he winds up hearing them. And I remember going to the theater. I had 2 girls in the back of me with their mouths closed and their hands over their mouth because they thought that Stephen Lang was going to come through the screen. So it just shows how impactful that movie was.
It's funny because horror as it's evolved over the last decade or so, has kind of like we've had like quote unquote elevator horror that's like gone on to like bigger things that we have like kind of abstract thoughts like and horror that explores larger ideas, but then we do have like the other side of like some horror films that have kind of like withdrawn and then they focus back on like one kind of central hook, which is like don't breathe, like the idea of like being super quiet and like kind of not breathing and stuff like that. And similar to that, we have A Quiet Place, which like is also again like you have to be super quiet. You can't make a noise or the creatures will get you. And it's funny, a lot of that comes in my mind stemmed from Doctor Who, because I'm a big Doctor Who fan, and like the Doctor Who had the Don't Blink episode with the Weeping Angels, and then from there Stephen Moffat then went on to write for the series, and he also wrote like a couple of other similar episodes, which was like don't make a sound, don't do this, don't think, don't do these other kind of like sensory type horror ideas. But yeah, it's funny that we have like a good handful of horror films that are able to work really well within a minimal space, because they do focus a lot on like just like one central idea of like trying to withhold from doing any sort of natural reaction that you might have, which is like Don't Breathe, A Quiet Place, and also Hush. Hush was like another one that dealt a lot with like the sensory deprivation type of horror like that was going on with the antagonist.
Another thing too is I remember Christian saying this a while back in the early 2000s and everything. I remember when studios would actually just take a chance on doing a horror film for like $6 million, and if it makes bank, it makes bank. If it doesn't, it doesn't. They didn't really take horror movies that seriously. Now we're just getting good original films finally underneath some of the other remakes and everything that we get. But we're actually getting some really good quality horror films for a change. And they actually are taking their time and putting in the budget in that they actually need for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel like the horror genre got a shot in the arm when The Conjuring came out. Because, at least for me, that movie itself was just insanely good. Like, I was on pins and needles for most of the movie. There were some down points, don't get me wrong. There were some moments where you take a breath, but then it picked right back up. It made you keep thinking. It didn't give everything away in one shot either, which was great. That was a great refresh.
Yeah.
Where you didn't see the threat right away. You got some pieces.
Yeah, exactly.
That's my biggest complaint about horror movies recently. Not like recently, but since in my time of being alive, is they give away everything right out of the gate. Sometimes even the movie trailers themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I love The Conjuring a lot. Like, I really do. I do agree. I think it is one of my favorite horror films of the last decade, probably in like of all time for me personally. And I think the thing about The Conjuring is that it was like a good addition to this horror renaissance that we've gotten over the last decade or so, which is like we have like again elevator horror films that do say something about abstract thoughts. So we have like the Witch, which is about like like kind of religious repression and stuff like that. We have the Babadook, which is about depression. It Follows, which is about like sexual promiscuity, like kind of going on between teenagers. And then we do have kind of horror films that are taking conventional ideas like The Conjuring and working with them really well. So The Conjuring, in my opinion, doesn't say anything like doesn't have any large thoughts to explore, but it does use conventional horror elements like very well. It's like really well directed, has great performances, it has really enjoyable characters and like endearing characters in the Warrens and in the family. And I think it does a great job kind of bridging the gap between conventional horror and quote unquote elevator horror. And I do appreciate what it did for the genre when it came along, and I do love both those films.
Gallagher says that thinks the new wave of horror stemmed from the rebirth of the Saw franchise. Okay, I'll give you that one. I honestly, I'm not a Saw franchise fan, but hey, I will give credit where credit's due, because they did turn that into an annual event. They were pumping one out every year. It felt like sometimes it felt like it was even sooner than a year.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I will concede that point, and I will give that one.
There definitely was an era though with Saw where horror became in the wake of like the early 2000s and like the war in Iraq and like the kind of body horror torture that was in the cultural zeitgeist of what was going on with American soldiers and stuff, which is where horror focused a lot on body horror. It was like it was Saw, Hostel, Cabin Fever. Like a bunch of like Eli Roth movies that focus on like the kind of like a grotesque nature of someone being chopped up or split in half or something like that. And luckily, I think we can still have that in the genre, of course, but I think luckily we have kind of drifted away from that, where it's not everything now. Like we do have those films once in a while, but we luckily have other films that focus on other elements of horror, which people could enjoy and find kind of more that might resonate with them on a more personal level.
Right. And I like the Saw films. I'm a fan of the franchise, but I also like the fact too, if they're actually going to use gore, I wanted to actually go ahead and use gore to actually tell the part of the story and not just have it just for the sake of having gore.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what it was for a while. Like we're starting to get into that territory where horror films were just like, they thought that was the answer. Like the answer to making good horror was just like having a lot of like grotesque and like gore on screen. And like I think they've kind of figured that out. They kind of like found the balance between the two, where you can have horror like elements like visual horror, but then also kind of have it mean something as well.
Now we have a question coming in here from PC asking about your favorite spots in Los Angeles. Now I'm going to take this one step further. Everywhere you've ever been, what's your favorite spot that you've ever been?
I've ever been in Los Angeles or anywhere.
Just in general.
In general, it's hard because I don't travel a lot. Like I've said this before. Like I don't travel very much, like out of state, like around the world. I've notoriously never been on a plane. Like I've never flown anywhere. It's just not because I'm necessarily scared to. Like there are jitters, but I just never had like a reason to. I could never, nothing's ever come up where I needed to be on a plane. And so maybe one day with the Schmodown, if I had to go out for an event or something. But I mean, like I think a couple years ago, I took a trip out to Oregon and kind of like a southern part of Oregon, and I stayed with my family for a little bit. Where we were out in a cabin, like quote unquote a cabin in the woods. And we were kind of off the grid. There was no cell signal. There's no Wi-Fi, so it was really just like sitting in like the woods in like a big cabin, and it was nice. It was a nice kind of getaway. But however, on the flip side of that, it was a bit scary because it was like a big cabin with like lots of lights in it, but the windows and the doors were all like big glass windows and big glass sliding doors. So at night, when you looked outside, it was just like pitch black into the woods. And so if you were anything standing outside the house, we would look like a big fishbowl. Like we would just, you could see us perfectly. We couldn't see out there. We couldn't see anything that was out there in the woods.
That's the type of area that I grew up in here in central Pennsylvania, where you can go out and literally look up into the sky and you see the galaxy. You can literally see like the space gas and everything in the sky. Now I live here in the city, which, mind you, is only 15 miles away from where I used to live growing up.
Yeah.
And it's a world of a difference. You don't see that many stars or anything, but I get you where you talk about the all-encompassing darkness.
Yeah.
That's my bread and butter right there. My favorite neighbors are deer and bear and squirrel.
Yeah.
Don't tell Christian that I like squirrels, but I would have a squirrel for a pet.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
I live out in the country and everything. I live down in Mississippi now, so I live down in the boondocks pretty much, where I can actually see the stars. There's squirrels. There's stuff like that. I like the quietness of actually the countryside because of the fact I can actually go outside and just look at the stars for a little bit and just forget about stuff. It's just relaxing.
Yeah.
To actually get out there.
Yeah, and it was nice. It was nice getting away and like kind of having a weekend or and a half to myself to kind of, get away from the city and like stop thinking about technology for a little bit. And the bad part was all the mosquitoes in addition to that. But yeah, but I think to answer PC's question though, like again, like as far as Los Angeles goes, I love going kind of like more southern LA. Which is like near Anaheim and that area, not necessarily Disneyland, but like in Fullerton, that whole area. It's just like it's a very nice area. Orange County, I guess it would be the kind of general area right now. Maybe not so much because everyone's over there protesting. But usually when things were normal, I would like to kind of go in that area.
And Galagos is asking, what was the last movie that you guys saw in theaters before the lockdown? For me, it was Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yeah, I think for me, yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go on ahead.
Well, I was gonna say I think for me it was Birds of Prey actually.
Okay, for me, The Invisible Man.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember I didn't get a chance to go out and see that. I know Andres did, and then so did Video Drew. But yeah, that was one that I had missed when it came out, so I should actually try to watch that soon.
It's really good. I mean, I had low expectations of seeing it in theaters and everything. Yeah. And what made me go out and see it was JoeBlow.com's review of what Jimmy O's had to say about it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay.
That's what I hear. That's what I hear. Like I also like the trailer. I did not like that trailer for the movie at all. Like I thought it looked really bad. And so when I saw the reviews coming out, I saw like everyone was giving a favorable review. So I decided like I should definitely check this out. So I really do want to see it at some point.
It's definitely worth the watch. And I have to say, the very beginning is a slow pace, slow burn type thing in the first couple of minutes. Mm-hmm. But once it picks off, it just keeps on going. It doesn't slow down.
Yeah.
And I think you're both going to like it.
The trailer for me, it was what turned me off to. That's the reason why I didn't go to see it in theaters. I didn't want to waste one of my AMC. It's been so long since I've been in a movie theater. I don't even remember what the hell the name of their program is anymore. But I didn't want to use one of those free movies for the week on that film.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I also just didn't get a chance to, or I didn't have the motivation to go see it in theaters when it came out. But now, in hindsight, I do want to see it. I do want to check it out, and hopefully, it will live up to the hype that everyone's talking about.
I do want to talk about one scene in particular that I liked, and it's when the girl is cooking breakfast, and then there's nobody in the kitchen. Matter of fact, the girl goes up the stairs to check on the guy's daughter. And there's nobody in the kitchen, but you can actually tell that there might be somebody in the kitchen, though, because it doesn't panhandle all the way up to the stairs or anything like that. It just focuses on the kitchen itself.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, they show that in the trailer, but it actually executes really well on the screen when you're watching it. Because I wasn't sure how it was actually going to play out on the screen. But when you watch it on the screen and everything and see the kitchen get caught on fire and everything, it gives you that spooky feel of somebody else is in the house besides those two people.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Did you guys that reminds me, did you guys see Dr. Sleep?
I did.
No, I haven't yet. I do want to see it, though, because I'm a huge Shining fan.
Yeah, I would highly recommend it. Like I watched it one of the first times, I think the first weekends that Video Drew came out to stay with me. She was here. We watched it on a whim, and it was great. I really loved it. It was a lot better than I expected, actually. Like I was kind of into it. I do love the Shining and like Stephen King in general, but I didn't really know what to expect from the movie, and I was really pleasantly surprised by it. I really enjoyed it.
Let's see. I went out to the theater.
Very pleasant. Oh, go ahead, John.
Okay. I went out to the movie theaters to see this and everything, and they did a very good job at making it its own thing, but instead of keep on paying homage to the original, which is something I like. And I was like, okay, how much are we going to be getting of the homage to the original? And it's just its own original entity without having to go back to the movie or anything like that. Yeah, there's a few parts here and there, but it's not like heavy where it's like, oh yeah, I remember this from The Shining or anything like that.
Yeah.
And I have to say that I also like the fact that they actually gave Danny a character arc, which is something that Stephen King didn't like with the Jack Nicholson character. There was no story arc. So they actually went on ahead and gave Danny the character arc that Jack Nicholson actually deserved in the first Shining movie. And I actually respected them to actually give them that character arc that he actually needed.
Yeah.
You can go on ahead, Chris.
Now, I would say the best movie that I've seen recently, probably in the past let's say 2 years, it's not going to be Endgame. I'll tell you that right now. It's not Avengers Endgame. So anybody that's thinking, guessing that one, you're dead wrong. 1917, hands down the best
17?
film. Yeah, 1917, hands down the best film that I've seen in the past 2 years.
Yeah, that's another one I didn't get a chance to see in theaters, and I was really bummed about because that was during the Oscar season, and I knew more movies in general like it behooves you to see in theaters because just for the spectacle and like the nature of the film, like it's better to see it in a theater with the proper sound design than the visual aspects of like the cinematography, but. That was one I missed, and similarly, I missed also Dunkirk in the same fashion. And I was able to catch Dunkirk later at home. I just literally sat in front of my TV like 5 feet away and just cranked up the volume like to like a moderate like level where it would be like kind of in my face. So I could like try to replicate the theater experience as best as I could. But 1917 is one I haven't watched yet, and I want to do the same thing. I want to sit down and watch it with like the speakers kind of blaring at me with like my vision just kind of encompassed by the screen itself.
I actually got to see it on Redbox and everything. I wanted to see 1917 in theaters, but I never got around to actually seeing it. There was like another movie that I wanted to see, but I wish I got to see it because I like how they did the one shot. It's like a very good one shot movie, especially how they actually. It's also kind of reminds me of kind of like a Call of Duty kind of style type thing because while the camera's focusing on the characters, and then the camera just pan angles over to another character as they're walking through the bunker and everything. It just shows how realistic this war actually is and how big it is. Don't get me wrong, we read about it, but actually to see it face to face on the screen, the way they did in 1917, is just phenomenal.
So, goes, 1917 was incredible. And then he goes on to say, I was trying to get Nerd Chronic to go see it with me one afternoon.
He was, yeah. I remember back when the world was still normal and we had a little bit more time. Like there was a day we were hanging out and he was going to go see it, but I couldn't make it because I had to do some work. And again, lo and behold, I never got to see it. I do want to say good night to Dark Faith. He's heading out. So yeah, thanks for hanging around, man. Yeah, it sucks. Like I kind of back when everything was still functioning, I didn't have a lot of time to just go to like movies as much as I used to because I've been super busy the past year with everything that's going on. But now that it's that contradictory nature that I think we all have, which is like now that movies are gone, I really want to go to a movie theater and go watch movies in the theater again.
Same here as well. That's my bread and butter right there. That's what I want to. I like just going to the movie theaters, forgetting about something for 2.5 hours, and just shoving popcorn in my face.
Yeah.
Yeah, the front desk manager and we talk quite a bit about movies there at the hotel that I work at. And he had this idea of when theaters come back, and obviously it wouldn't happen right away, but he said about taking and making, instead of having like huge communal theaters, taking rooms, like make like hotel rooms and just make little mini movie theaters for like families. Like for me and my kids, say we want to go see, I don't know, kids movie pops in my head, Sonic. Say we want to go see Sonic. We go and we select on a tablet, like you do at McDonald's or whatever now, where you go to the kiosk and you select what you want, and then it comes up on the screen and you order your food through the kiosk and whatnot, and you have it served to you and make it more personalized. Now, personally, I don't like that idea. I mean, call me traditionalist. I don't know, maybe there's theaters that are doing this already, or if it's even been a thought, but I like the idea of like going to see an end game, or like say when Matrix 4 comes out. If I go to see Matrix 4, I want to see it with a boatload of people because I want to experience that with my fellow nerd community. I don't want to be shacked up in a hotel room with only a handful of people. I want to have people like you and John and Christian and everybody at SEN. I want to be part of that group, and I want to be in that theater, and I want to experience the wow moments and just be amazed with everybody else. I mean, because imagine, I take Endgame for example, when, and spoiler alert, sue me, when Captain America picks the hammer up and they show it him. I mean, I was in that theater and everybody just lost their mind.
Yeah.
Now I watch it here at home. I still love that scene.
Yeah.
But it doesn't hold the same gravitas that it did in the theater. Same with the portal scene. I love the portal scene, but it doesn't hold the same that it does seeing it with hundreds of people.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel the same way. I mean, that was always my favorite part of being at a theater. Like since I was a kid, it was the idea of being around people, having a good time, and enjoying the film. Because like I can enjoy a film like perfectly fine at home. That's not why I go to a theater. Like a theater has like the really big sound and visual elements that you can enjoy. But the thing I love most about it is being around people and kind of feeling the energy of the audience around you. And like similar to what you said for Avengers, like I was there. I went to the like 6 p.m. showing on like the opening Tuesday night before it came out, and with a couple of my friends, and at the Grauman's Chinese Theater in downtown LA, in Hollywood, and like it was a packed house. It was like huge IMAX screen that we were in front of, and it was like a beautiful moment when like the portal scenes hit and everyone's cheering and clapping and yelling, and that's an experience you're not going to get anywhere else. Like you're not going to get that with like watching it at home. You're not going to necessarily get that kind of experience at like even say like a sports game or something like that, or like a different type of live event. Like it is a very unique situation to be in an audience enjoying kind of that piece of entertainment being thrown at you in that aspect, like, and especially for something like Avengers, like it was kind of a once in a lifetime experience.
And for me, was Wonder Woman with No Man's Land.
Yeah.
And
I forgot all about that. And
here's the thing, I'm rewatching Wonder Woman right now for a review I have to do for tomorrow with me and another YouTuber, and I still have goosebumps from her coming out of that bunker and taking down those Nazis, and then all of a sudden here comes the rest of the army behind her following her. It still holds up. It still gives me goosebumps. But I remember when everybody was just gung-ho over it and just rooting for her, and the whole theater just went nuts.
Yeah.
And like y'all said, the gravitas with that, it just doesn't hold up in the same and confined space whenever you're just watching it by yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
The goosebumps are still there, but
just
right.
Just you saying about that scene, like I picture it, I can hear the music, all of it, and it just triggered something in me. It's like, man, I'm really bummed we're not getting Wonder Woman 84. Not yet.
Yeah, not yet. Not yet.
Because I so bad. That is probably the movie that I want to see this year. Wonder Woman 84. I want to see her ride the lightning with the lasso. Like that scene in itself looks like it could be the No Man's Land scene just by the way it looks.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, luckily we still get it. We'll get it one day. I mean, I think they pushed it back, but we'll get it eventually. As opposed to what really sucks is all these films that are kind of in limbo because of the pandemic, and like we're just not really sure if and when we're going to get them. Like at least Wonder Woman was kind of like in the can. We can at least look forward to it as something to hold on to for the end of this.
Yeah,
well,
go ahead.
I found out today that they're actually holding back Tenet, and they're holding back Wonder Woman till like August, I believe. If I read that right. No, December. December is where they're wanting to launch it at.
Yeah, right.
From what I said.
Yeah, I mean, like
I was gonna say they're looking at August. That I'll be honest, I'm not trying to be pessimistic or anything, and I even said this. It might have been on the episode that you were on, their Nerd Chronic.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see theaters opening by the end of the year, like not in mass.
Yeah,
you might get sporadic here or there, and for anybody that works in the movie theater industry or in movies in general, like I'm sorry to say that, I'm not trying to be the downer here, but we don't have this thing under control yet.
Yeah.
I mean, I live in Williamsport, And if you know Williamsport, Pennsylvania, you know it for one thing, and that's Little League Baseball. And this is the 75th anniversary of Little League, and they canceled it. It's the first time in the history of Little League that they've canceled it. And I'll tell you what, we're feeling it already. We're not even close to what it should be, and we're feeling it.
Yeah.
I mean, the hotel I work at, the day that it was announced, the ripple effect just started, and it's just getting worse. So I hate to be that bearer of bad news, and I hope that I'm wrong, and maybe tomorrow we wake up and somebody announces, hey, we found the answer, we can kill this thing now.
Yeah.
But I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, I mean, and that's like really that's the realistic nature of like what's happening. Is like we aren't really in a position where we can like start just getting back to what we want to do. I know people are itching to get back to normal, but like it's if we try to push it too fast, like it's going to get worse, and it's going to go back to the way things were a month ago when we were really locked down. We were really kind of like on pins and needles every day, trying to figure out what's going to happen next. And yeah, with theaters, like I do think theaters will bounce back eventually, but things are going to definitely shift in the way we consume media, or new media, particularly like new movies and new TV shows. Right now we do have, in the next coming months, we have the HBO service and the NBC service launching soon. And I think that's going to be like another big milestone in the way people kind of like adapt to this whole thing. Like how well those services do and what they provide, I think will play another role in like how theaters and like public venues like market themselves to kind of adapt to the way people are starting to kind of realize the way the world can work now with what we have to work with.
Definitely. Yeah. And I even have to agree with Chris on this one too. Like, I don't see it actually opening up at all for movie theaters right now. And there is a such thing as celebrating too early. Mm-hmm. I mean, I even said this at work as someone that actually works for a hospital and everything, that, you know, yeah, it's great that we want to have some normalcy, but we actually have to pump the brakes and everything and see where we're at right now. Because, you can be optimistic all you want.
We don't want to be George Bush in 2003 and announce that the Iraq War has been won.
Yeah.
Right.
We don't want to say mission accomplished and then get our asses stomped.
Yeah, it's a very tenuous time right now, and I think everyone just has to stay put and like do their part by just keeping your head down. But I understand though. I understand people are itching to kind of get back what they miss about society. And luckily, I live with about like 5 people who are my roommates, and occasionally we'll throw on a movie and we'll sit down together and we'll kind of like have a communal thing inside with one another. But like there is kind of the aspect that I think a lot of people are missing, which is going to a theater, going to downtown, to a restaurant, just being around other people. Particularly for people who are extroverted, people who gain energy by being around other people. Like it's tough for them specifically.
Another thing too is like I'm binging a lot more stuff than what I normally do. Like the shows that I've been watching, like I ended up watching the Beastie Boys biography that they had on Apple TV. Yeah. And I love that biography that they did. And then I watched a movie that was actually out of my comfort zone that I wasn't sure a TV show that was out of my comfort zone. And I wasn't sure what I was going to get out of it. And that show was Upload with Amazon Prime. And the originality behind Upload was just fantastic for a sci-fi feel to it.
I'm waiting for Space Force. To hit. I'm not a Steve Carell fan, but I am so in for that.
I am too, for real.
Yeah, I'm not sure what new series I might be looking forward to. It. I mean, off the top of my head, I can't think of something right now. I am interested in general in the HBO service, like the HBO Max service that's coming out. Like, I know we have a lot of services that are coming out right now, and it's becoming very stretched in like our ability to keep them all in order. But I do like the kind of content that they have backed up on there and the library of content that they're going to have. And I think particularly for me, because again, like I said earlier, I'm a big Doctor Who fan, and they're going to have all the seasons of Doctor Who for streaming on there. So like they kind of got me with that one, admittedly. So I think that I'm probably going to have my sights set on that in the next month or so. But beyond that, like, I'm not sure what new shows I am like looking forward to. Like I just finished Watchmen, the Watchmen series that came out a couple months ago.
That was good.
I finally got a chance to sit down and watch it. I finished it. It was only like 8 episodes, 9 episodes, and it was fantastic. I really loved it. Yeah, I'm trying to find the balance right now between work and like trying to keep my peace of mind in the pandemic.
I understand how that goes too. Because of that.
It landed me when they announced that Crunchyroll was partnering with HBO Max.
Right.
So that was the hook, line, and sinker for me, because I'm big into my anime. I would love to get Winston on here one day and just, even if it's just one-on-one, and just shoot the shit about anime. I love anime to death.
Yeah, and I think I'm not sure I mentioned on here yet, but yeah, I work for a couple YouTubers who do reaction. They have reaction channels, so they do reactions to TV shows, movies, like in anime, a lot of anime, and so like I get to like most of the new anime that I consume now is through them. Like if they're gonna watch it, I watch it with them as they're watching it, and so I've been enjoying. We just finished Demon Slayer. They're getting through Vinland Saga and like a handful of other ones that are the new hot animes this past year, which I'm really enjoying. And that's like, it's funny because that's like the only time I really have a chance to consume new media is when I'm doing work. I'm like working on stuff through other people.
The two anime that I'm hot into right now is My Hero Academia and Black Clover.
Yeah, those are the two that we're also doing right now as well.
PC comment off what you had said there, Chronic. It says, I've been social distancing my whole life.
Yeah. And it's funny because like I feel somewhat the same way. Like I'm not a big like social person. Like, you know, even before this, I had very much a homebody in general, and luckily I was well suited for functioning in this whole thing, which is because when I started working for the Schmoes full time, I took on the editing job this year, and in January, and so I left my full time job of what I was doing before, and I started building my infrastructure to work from home, so I can start doing the Schmoes full time and my other work. And then when this whole thing hit, I was luckily in a position where I could continue working almost, you know, without pause, because I had everything in order to continue the show with the way we were doing before. I was working from home. I was sending the files, like the final cuts for everything, and I was very fortunate enough to have everything kind of ready to go when this happened. And now that we're done with the studio matches, we're getting ready to kind of pivot again and get into the Star Wars tournament and the Inner Kingdom tournament. And so it will be a learning curve again to kind of make sure we get all of that in order. But luckily, I am pretty happy with the way things have panned out as far as the way the show has been able to stay on trajectory with what we need.
Now, do you think with having your hand, or I should say having Christian's hand more on virtual to do these matches, do you think that would open the door to newer competitors, like somebody like me? I'm highly interested. If Christian would reach out and say, "Hey, you and Larry Lease, one-on-one. Larry lives in Texas. I live here in Pennsylvania." But he would say, "If you want to do a match, we can do it virtually." Do you think that opens that door for new people, or even say somebody like JTE?
Yes and no. So like I think right now, so the Inner Kingdom tournament that we're doing now specifically is a tournament that one Christian had in mind already. He was kind of like had that mulling around for the regular season before everything got shut down. And so now that we're here, he wanted to kind of take the opportunity to focus a singular tournament on which is like just one Star Wars tournament, Inner Kingdom. They're very similar, so we can do the tournament with people online who we know the faces, we know who are going to be involved in that, and they're people who have been officially drafted, so they're not new players necessarily unless they're rookies. And the thing about, and conversely to that, is that with singles and teams, he wants to hopefully save those for when we get back in the studio to film. One, because the team dynamic just isn't the same if you're doing it online. It's just not, like, it doesn't work as well. And then two, singles is like the prestigious league that he holds up kind of like higher, like just in the sense that it's like the original and it has like a little bit more like notoriety to it in his mind. And so we're hoping to make sure
it has prestige.
Yeah, exactly. So we're hoping to get those matches ready to go once we can shoot again. and have people face to face. Like, like there are exciting matches that we have lined up. I can't say, but we have exciting matches lined up and ready to go as soon as we're ready to film again. Like we have people who are just, it's already confirmed internally. It's confirmed what's going to happen, but we want to make sure that those interactions happen face to face because it's not the same if they're online. And then as far as, getting new people in here, giving people shots online, that's the thing that Christian's always tried to balance with. He was always interested in finding new talent, but it's like the operative word in that sense is finding talents. Like there are people who are great at trivia, they're great at trivia, and like he looks for that as well because they need to be able to hang in the competition sense. But he definitely wants to have them hang in the kind of talent and personality sense too, and that's why we do have people who jump in, like the Barbarian. The Barbarian's one like a trivia master. He does like pub and bar trivia naturally, but he has a good shtick, and that's what Finstock, Dagnino, was looking for when he was drafting people. He's drafting people who have a presence about themselves when they come in and they're in the league, and that's part of what Christian's always looking for. So I think as he expands upon this on the online space, he's going to keep an eye out for people who have the ability to kind of, one, answer questions, and that's like kind of like the base of what you need, but two, have something like have a shtick or hook or like a kind of personality that says something different about the show. It provides something different, contributes something different, and it reminds me of very much of like SNL, Saturday Night Live. Christian reminds me a lot of Lorne Michaels, who is this kind of like mastermind behind the scenes, who's like orchestrating everything. And lots of people try out for SNL and they don't make it. That doesn't mean they're not funny or not talented. They just don't fit the bill of what the show needs at a certain given time. Jim Carrey tried out, Kevin Hart, and Stephen Colbert. Like people have tried out and they didn't make on SNL, and they went on to have better careers, after that. But Lorne Michaels is like putting together a football team at any given time for the show. He's trying to find people who complement one another, complement the show and what it needs to kind of reach different demographics, different audiences, different aspects and angles that he wants to kind of put out for entertainment value. And Christian's very much the same way with the Schmoedown. He's looking for people who complement the show and the big picture of it. And so I think that's what he's always going to be kind of prioritizing. Even now that we're reaching into like digital matches, luckily we're going to have the tournaments going on for 2 months or so. That will last us a while. And then we are hoping once that's done, things will be stable enough to be able to film with like limited conditions. So we can go in, we could film like with very safe conditions, like have people come in like one-on-one to do like matches, make sure there's not a lot of people standing around, and minimize the audience, the crew and all that stuff. And we can hopefully get the show going as you guys previously would have known it.
Go ahead, John. You look like you got something brewing there.
Not really or anything like that. I mean, I've been but no, basically and everything, I've been watching the show since season 1 and everything, and
Nice.
I'm glad that you gave us some insight on what Christian is actually looking for, because I've actually thought about competing myself because of general knowledge of movies, and also I think I would actually pretty decent with movie release dates maybe, and some Robin Williams stuff and certain other stuff that they actually have on the thing as well. So I mean, I would actually be excited if Christian ever invited me as well.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that he's actually is looking for talent and something that would actually expand the community and also keep the community at where it needs to be, rather than something that's actually forced.
Exactly.
So I really do commend him for that.
Yeah, and Christian he's a hardworking guy, and like I really, I do, again, like you said, I commend him for everything he's done with the show, because like this thing is, even though it is successful, I think it is successful and it is lucrative in a certain sense. It is still in the youthful days where it's more of a passion project than a viable brand that can go out there and kind of run itself. And so it takes a lot of hard work, takes a lot of investment to make it functional. And he is like diehard set on making it work. And like in this era, and right now with what's going on, it could have deflated very easily. Like we could have let it go, it could have ran out of steam, and it would have been very detrimental to the show. But he's working very hard to make sure it's in the zeitgeist, people are still being entertained and being given content. And so I think luckily, I think with these 2 tournaments coming up, it's going to give people a lot of fun stuff to talk about for the next couple months.
Most definitely. And I remember when people said, oh, this is not going to work, or that's not going to work, and people laughed at him because of the fact that he wanted to try to do a movie trivia show, like a WWE kind of style to it. And they said, "Oh no, that's never gonna work. That's not gonna look how big it is now."
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of people proving other people wrong
Yeah.
because I can relate to Christian on that. Because I remember when I said back in 2012 when I was doing Fantasy and Sci-Fi Rocks My World, I was actually an admin for that page.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
And the admin at the time, thank you. And the admin at the time was like, "Well, what else should we do?" I said, "Let's do a movie page." And the guy's like, "No, that's not going to work because it's too diverse. People are not going to gravitate towards it that much or anything like that." I said, "Oh, it'll work if you actually know the audience that you actually want to reach out to.
Yeah.
And if you actually put the movie news and stuff that people are more geared to." And he didn't want to go with it, so I left the page, and then I created my own page, which is the Movie Lovers Unites page. And Sarah at the time, it was just a Movie Lovers page. She goes, "Can we also do TV news? Because I'm a huge TV person." I'm like, yeah, go on ahead.
Yeah.
Anything to make it more creative, to actually energize the fans, anything to actually get the page going, I'm all for it. And now it's at 15,000 followers now for that.
Nice. Yeah. Good job, man. It's like, I mean, yeah, but it really is about, like, you know, finding your passion in the project that you want to invest in, and then working to find an audience through what you think will work. Because I mean, I started doing this as a podcast, and from there I was able to kind of expand that into different venues of like what I wanted to do for certain types of people. So like I started using my podcast presence to reach out. I found the Schmodown. I found like the reactors that I work with now, and I do have like a lot of good connections of friends I'm very proud of. But it does start with like you just kind of finding one small passion project that you want to really make succeed, and then it could expand to different ways you didn't even expect over time.
Right.
I'm actually, I want to say we both are experiencing that right now just with having you on with us, because a week ago, Larry and we talk daily on Twitter, and he's like, "Well, try to get this guy, try to get this person," and in my mind, I'm thinking, "Yeah, that ain't ever going to happen." I have 20 followers on YouTube. I don't get any live viewership when we're doing the shows, but then now all of a sudden it's like the floodgates open, and we have you here tonight. Tuesday, it's already been announced that we're going to have Brett and Kate on. We're doing a special Tuesday episode, which I'm super pumped about.
Yeah.
Anytime I can get somebody from SEN on, I'm absolutely. I mean, somebody reaches out to me and asks if they want to be on. I mean, you're welcome back anytime. Everybody else is welcome back anytime. I'm a huge fan of SEN. I'm becoming a huge fan of the Schmodown. And like, so what you say about a passion project, this here is my passion project. Hotel Nerd is my brainchild. And I want to see this thing take off like a rocket. I want to be able to be another outlet to get the word out about Schmodown. Case in point, I think I may have got one person already involved with Schmodown because Jericho joining up with Schmodown, which is huge. Like Jericho and Kevin Smith, for me, are two names that I recognize right out of the gate, and I'm super pumped just to see their first matches happen in the near future. Hopefully, once all of this thing goes away, hopefully sooner than later.
Yeah.
So when you say about passion projects, I totally understand because I'm living it right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's and I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to help out, and I think you guys. I mean, it's just one of those things where you have to feel fulfilled about what you're doing because you're doing it. You know, because you're putting the work in, and some roads are easier than others for some people. But I think it's if you keep at it, like it gets a little bit easier to just keep doing it every day, and I think you feel fulfilled by just the art and act of doing it, which is I think the most important part. And then in that sense, once you have the momentum from yourself, then I think you'll eventually, like, you do find the audience, you do find the kind of people who gravitate towards you because you have something that they want to see. And I'm happy to be here, guys.
That's also how I feel about my podcast as well. As a matter of fact, you can actually listen to it on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and all that too for movie lovers. I'm at 133 episodes, and I've started almost a year ago doing just podcast episodes.
Yeah.
YouTube used to be a big medium for me up until they decided to change their rules and regulations, and I don't even have a laptop right now.
Yeah.
So podcasting for me is definitely the way to go for right now. But I'm easing my way into StreamYards and everything pretty soon. So I'll probably wind up doing that for my channel pretty soon and converting the video format into audio formats.
Right.
Yeah, well, I tell you right now, Christian is a huge influence on me. Because actually, I started watching Collider live. Well, I'll just say this: Christian's been a big influence on me since I've been watching Collider. Period.
Yeah.
Because I love his humor.
Yeah.
And when my wife passed away, John can vouch for me. I was in a very deep, dark headspace. Very, very nasty thoughts were in my head, and especially when Collider Live started up, it started bringing me back to life. The humor, it was my daily fuel to get every day, a little bit stronger every day. And then when he launched SEN and he announced that he was leaving Collider, my first thought was, this guy's insane. He's leaving someplace that's secure. I mean, at that point, it felt secure. And he went out and he did it, and it's taking off. And basically, John and I were just talking one day. It's like, hey, let's give it a shot just for the hell of it.
Yeah.
And now we're morphed into what we are now. And we just started doing this here at the start of the year. So, Christian, when I say on SEN Live through Schmobot that Christian's a huge influence, he is. I'm sure I'm not the only one that feels that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
because I definitely feel that way too.
Yeah, it's usually what it is, though. I mean, it's usually, podcasts and people in creative space are inspired by people who were doing it before them, and then you really just had to find your own footing in that sense and like in that space to kind of make your own impact. And I think with Christian and SEN and Schmodown and all that, it is big influence on people who aspire to build something and make it successful. And likewise for myself, like I started doing this and like I quickly found like the aspiration to work with the show, and I'm lucky I was inspired enough by Christian to kind of make that come to fruition with his help and other people's helps as well. But I do think you guys are doing a great job. Just doing something and for the sake of doing something, because that's part of being productive and being creative. It's like my favorite quote, if I could find it, from like one of my favorite quotes from people, which is, don't get it right, just get it written. Which is, don't worry about getting the thing perfect when you do it. Just worry about doing it and just getting it down and done. Like, it'll refine itself over time the more you do it. But like the point is to just do it.
I like that.
Yeah, I've never heard that quote, but I do like that quote quite a bit.
Yeah.
Another thing that I want to mention too is, Chris, you said that Christian was a big influence on you.
Oh,
and
yeah,
everything.
Definitely.
He was a big influence, right? Schnepp for me as well.
Right.
But the way Christian interviews people is the reason why I interview people for my podcast and everything. And I like letting people feel relaxed when I'm interviewing them. And instead of it being like a bunch of questions back and forth, I like it to be where it's just two people conversating between the two of each other, getting to know each other, and doing it that way.
Yeah.
So the way it doesn't feel like a paint by the numbers kind of interview. I want them to feel as relaxed as possible. And they even messaged me not even 5 seconds after the show. He goes, they're all like, I enjoy the show. I enjoy the process of how you do the interviews. You're very professional at what you do. Keep up the great work. And it just warms my heart to know that I'm doing a great job with what I'm doing. I'm very humbled by that. And Christian has a lot to thank for that too, because I'm actually learning how to actually interview people in the way that's actually professional and the way he actually does it. And even Howard Stern, for that matter, too, I look up for him too, but more Christian.
Yeah.
with the way he interviews.
Yeah, some of the best interviews are just like conversations. Just like the ones where people feel like they really are sitting down and just having a chat. Um, I've done a handful of interviews with people that I know that I really admire and enjoy, and I always aim to have that kind of like that more comfortable rapport with people to make sure like they don't feel like they're being grilled about questions, like they feel like they're comfortable just kind of speaking freely about what's on their mind and what the conversation dictates.
I mean, I find that's the best way too, because like tonight I had a rundown. We were going to talk all about the Schmodown with all the pickups for the free agency.
Yeah.
And then when we got you locked in, it's like, yep, throw away the rundown. We don't need it. We're just going to go off the cuff. So
it's turning into a really good show.
Yeah.
PC had a question.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. Asking if Video Drew's feeling better.
Yeah, because I know she was supposed to do her karaoke last night, which she usually does on Friday nights. But she was feeling a little bit under the weather. But now she's bouncing back. She's still a little bit there, but she's hopefully going to be well enough to still debut her show this tomorrow, Sunday night, In the Dark with Video Drew, and she's working really hard at that. And then throughout the week, we do have our own regular shows, which luckily isn't as tasking, like karaoke and dancing around is a lot to ask for someone who's feeling ill. But other than that, like the other shows that she does, luckily don't require as much energy, so she can sit down and at least do those.
Right. Chris, I'm gonna let you know that I have to go. The battery is dying for me, but
yeah,
I just want to say,
yeah, I was actually going to get ready to call it as well because I got to be up in like 5.5 hours.
That's no problem.
Yeah, morning shift.
Yeah, I know.
But yeah, again, thank you very much for being on. This is a great 90 minutes talking with you. Where can everybody find you at?
Usually, as my name notifies, it's at Nerd Chronic on all social media platforms, which is Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Tumblr. I think we set it up and never touch it, but it's everywhere pretty much. And we usually have stuff coming out for everyone else. So like I work for the Schmodown, which you guys know and love, of course, and that's going to have some exciting things coming out over the next month and a half. And then I do Video Drew's shows as well. I do Video Chronic with her on Mondays and Wednesday and Thursday nights. And then we also do, when we can in these days, with our good friend Andres Galaghost, we do our chronic commentaries where we just watch movies and kind of talk along over it as riff track style. And that's pretty much it. Again, like I work for the Schmodown, so please keep an eye out for those things because we're going to have a lot of exciting things coming up over the next couple weeks.
Right. And you guys can actually find me at Movie Lovers Unite. I have a podcast on there on Anchor, but you can find me on Google Podcasts, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. And we do a top 10 list of our favorite movies as well, just like Roka does a top 10 for his. I do interviews. I also go on ahead and do movie news, what goes into certain things that how movie theaters are run. I've also go into a lot more detail and everything else on the show. And you can also find me on Twitter at Movie Lovers TV Lovers Unite, at John DiGregorio at Twitter. And then you can also find me, of course, on my Facebook page at Movie Lovers TV Lovers Unite. And I've also got a WordPress page as well for Movie Lovers Unite. So that's going to be everything that you guys can actually find me on. And where can people find you, Chris?
Well, as the name tag says, at hotel_nerd86 on Twitter. And like I tell everybody else now, it's just simple, just blanket statement. Pretty much any social media platform, just look up Hotel Nerd and you'll find me. Also have a Patreon page that I launched this week. Again, if you go and you look for Hotel Nerd, you're going to find me. So I just made it very simple, straight to the point for anybody that's interested. But with that, again, like I said, it was a great 90 minutes to talk with you. Greatly appreciate you being on. Look forward to having more conversations with you in the future.
Absolutely.
Best of luck to you. Stay safe. during this whole crisis.
Yeah, you guys too.
And you're welcome back anytime.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, I'd love to come back sometime.
All right.
All right.
Have
Have
a
a
good
good
night.
night, everybody.
Have a good night, guys.
All right. Good night, everyone.